You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
You know, sometimes I feel like trying to keep up with digital defense is like,
Yeah.
it's like trying to watch a runaway train while also trying to invent a whole new braking system for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Every single week, there's a new 0-day, some new ransomware, and then a completely novel way that AI is, helping us, but also creating these security holes we just never saw coming.
It's a sprint, and this week it really feels like the rules of defense just fundamentally changed. We've moved from protecting the network perimeter to defending the language model prompt itself.
Yeah.
And our goal today is really to cut through that sheer volume. We're going to look at the enterprise systems still getting hit, the healthcare orgs under siege, and the absolute bleeding edge of these new agentic AI vulnerabilities to figure out what's truly critical right now.
And that's the mission, isn't it? Because we're talking about everything from these max severity flaws in foundational software like Apache Tika, all the way to developers' AI assistants getting hijacked in a way that feels like it's straight out of a movie. It's just overwhelming if you look at it piece by piece.
Right.
But when you put it all together, well, the core issue seems to be control. Control over access and intent.
Yeah.
That's what we try to get to here at Vocal Technologists.
Precisely. We need to find the signal.
Okay, let's unpack this. The most disruptive theme that's emerging is how AI has become both this incredible tool and a totally new kind of vulnerability.
Yeah.
So let's start with a warning that really should change how every security pro thinks about this prompt defense. It comes from the UK's NCSC.
Right.
And they say prompt injection is fundamentally different from SQL injection.
And what's so fascinating here is that for decades, our entire security posture was built on this really solid foundation, the separation of instruction and data. We had these mental models, these tools that just understood a database query, the instruction, had to be treated totally separately from user input, the data. But that basic assumption, it just doesn't hold up for LLMs.
And that's because LLMs, large language models, they're not really executing code in the traditional sense. They're just, predicting the next word.
That's it, exactly. They don't separate instructions from data. They just look at the entire prompt, everything in the context, and try to generate what is, a statistically probable response.
So it's the old fixes, the things we always relied on, like parameterized queries. They just don't work here.
They don't, because the model can be tripped into interpreting data as a new instruction, completely overruling what it was originally told to do.
So if the model itself can't tell the good commands from the bad, I love the phrase the NCSC uses for them, they call LLMs inherently confusable deputies.
It's a brilliant phrase.
A deputy that wants to help but can't tell when it's being told to hand over the keys to the vault.
It is because it perfectly captures that fundamental shift. It forces us to stop relying only on, filtering the input. We can't just expect the LLM to police itself.
So what do we do? What do we rely on then?
It has to be deterministic guardrails, things that constrain the system's actions outside the model. We have to implement least privilege for every single LLM workflow so the agent only has the exact permissions it needs for one task.
And you have to watch it.
And you have to watch it. You have to monitor every single tool or API call that model makes. If the agent suddenly tries to call the deletion API after you asked it a simple question, you know something's wrong. The risk is architectural now.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because we are seeing this play out right now in the tools developers use every single day. There was this 6-month investigation that found critical flaws across every major AI-integrated IDE.
GitHub Copilot, Cursor, JetBrains, all of them.
They called the whole situation an IDEsaster.
And the findings were, frankly, alarming. Over 30 vulnerabilities, 24 CVEs assigned. Just think about the attack chain for a second. An attacker uses prompt injection. Maybe it's hidden in a read.im file you clone from a repository, or maybe it's pulled from a malicious server.
And it hijacks the AI agent that's right there in your development environment.
Yeah.
So it's like a phishing attack, but it's targeting the AI instead of the human. And once it's hijacked, what does it do? You mentioned RCE. For those listening who haven't been in InfoSec for 20 years, what does remote code execution mean here?
Remote code execution means the attacker can run, basically any code they want on the developer's machine without their consent. In this case, the hijacked agent abuses legitimate features of the IDE.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it might use a feature for fetching an external schema or tweak an executable path, but instead of doing its job, It uses that power to steal intellectual property, source code, or just run malware right on the developer's machine. It moves the threat right inside that trusted sandbox.
And we connect this to the bigger picture. The security warnings are multiplying faster than the tools themselves. I mean, Gartner analysts are telling organizations to just block all AI-enabled browsers right now.
Okay.
That sounds pretty extreme.
It is severe, but their analysis suggests it's necessary. The core issues are data leakage and autonomous action. These agentic browser tools send sensitive browsing data to cloud backends for processing, which right there violates a lot of data policies.
But the autonomous action part, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about the risk. If you are logged into your company's HR portal, a compromised AI browser could be hit with prompt injection from a script on some random website you visit.
And then the agent.
The agent, now hijacked, could then autonomously start submitting expense reports or approving requests or changing user settings because it inherited your active session credentials.
But blocking these tools altogether feels like a huge drag on productivity. I mean, how long can companies realistically do that?
That's the dilemma, isn't it? It's an arms race between capability and control. Vendors are trying to mitigate it. Google Chrome, for example, their new agentic features are using separate, smaller models just to check the main agent's intended actions. But we've already seen failures.
Yeah.
Even in simple no-code agents, like in Copilot Studio, they were easily tricked into ignoring security rules and exposing customer credit card details in a travel bot experiment. It's a constant cat-and-mouse game.
Speaking of sophisticated cat-and-mouse games, let's shift from those futuristic AI risks back to foundational enterprise security, because attackers are still hitting the core systems we all rely on. There are two major time-sensitive flaws we really need to highlight.
These are absolutely critical. First, there's a flaw in Apache Tika, a very common content analysis framework. It's CVE 2025-665-16, an XXE vulnerability.
Okay, let's pause on that acronym, XXE. What does that mean for the average defender?
XXE is XML external entity. Essentially, it means an attacker can embed malicious content inside a file, in this case a PDF, that tricks the server into fetching and executing something from outside.
Which could be very bad.
Very bad. It could expose sensitive server files, or worst case, allow remote code execution on the server itself, maximum severity.
And the second one, React 2 shell, CVE 2025-55182. This one hits the modern web development stack pretty hard.
It does. It's a critical RCE in React Server Components and Next.js. So a simple, unauthenticated web request could potentially compromise the entire server.
What's so sobering is what happened right after that React flaw was disclosed.
Yeah, that's a great example of just how fragile mitigation can be. Cloudflare tried to deploy a rapid fix through their web application firewall, their Wave.
That's a totally normal response.
Totally normal response. But the Wave update itself was flawed, and it ended up temporarily knocking a ton of their customer sites offline. It just highlights that domino effect. The cure can sometimes be almost as disruptive as the disease.
A good reminder that even the defenders have bad days. Okay, now let's look at how insidious malware deployment has gotten. It's not just big enterprise systems, it's the tools developers trust every minute.
Right. Researchers found two malicious VS Code extensions, one disguised as a theme, another as an AI assistant, that were secretly dropping info stealers.
And what they were collecting is it's immense. Not just basic data, but running processes, clipboard content, Wi-Fi passwords, screenshots, and critically cryptocurrency wallet passwords.
A total compromise for any developer who has that on their machine. And this tactic isn't just for developer tools. Criminals are also abusing Google Ads for really common search terms like troubleshooting guides for sharing a ChatGPT conversation.
So they're targeting people who are just trying to get help.
Exactly. They direct you to what looks like a benign guide, but it's actually pushing Mako infostealer malware called Amos. The guide tells you to run a terminal command that silently steals all your credentials, your browser data, and installs a persistent backdoor.
That path from a Google ad to a shared AI check to a command line that is terrifyingly sophisticated.
It is.
Okay, let's pivot and ground this in the real-world financial and personal impact, specifically in healthcare. The Barts Health NHS Trust incident in the UK is a huge example.
Yeah, the Barts incident confirmed the KillaGP ransomware group stole 241 gigabytes of data from their invoice databases. The attack exploited a vulnerability in Oracle e-Business Suite.
And while clinical systems were okay, the stolen data included patient billing details, former staff salaries. It's a massive privacy hit.
And Barts wasn't alone. Vitas Healthcare in the U.S., the largest for-profit hospice chain, also had a breach affecting over 300,000 patients. SSNs, medical data, all from a compromised vendor account. The whole supply chain is a risk.
And this systemic targeting speaks to a new trend, right, in ransomware.
It does. We saw reports of a massive 700% increase in ransomware attacks that specifically target hypervisors like Hyper-V and VMware ESSi by groups like Akira.
Hold on. For listeners who don't manage data centers, can you quickly explain what a hypervisor is and why it's such a juicy target?
Absolutely. A hypervisor is the software that creates and runs virtual machines. It's the central control point for dozens, maybe hundreds of operating systems on one physical machine.
So if you get that, you get everything.
You get everything. And they often don't have traditional endpoint protection EDR tools on them, so they're a soft target with a massive payoff.
And the financial scale of this ransomware economy is just staggering. The U.S. Treasury reported payments surpassed $4.5 billion just from 2022 to 2024.
It's a massive multi-billion-dollar transfer of wealth funding future attacks. And beyond that external threat, we also have to talk about the risk of privileged access, even after someone is fired. The bizarre story of the actor twin brothers.
Oh, this story. Muneeb and Sohaib Akhtar, federal contractors who allegedly used their still active credentials after being terminated to delete almost 100 government databases.
Including FOIA records and sensitive investigative files.
Just let that sink in. The credentials were still active.
It's just a visceral, unbelievable example of why you need immediate credential revocation. And you can contrast that internal failure with the external accountability the UK put on LastPass, fining them $1.2 million for their 2022 breach.
So whether it's insiders or vendors, it all comes back to poorly controlled access.
It does.
So after all this, the AI chaos, the 0 days, the huge financial impact, what should modern defenders actually be focusing on? We need strategies that go past the old advice from 10 years ago.
Well, the first major strategic shift has to be adopting a rigorous zero-trust framework for the browser. The browser is now a critical security perimeter because of all the sensitive data and apps that run inside it.
What does zero trust for the browser actually entail in practice?
It means a few key things. First, identity-first access control, so you're always verifying who the user is. Second, continuous device verification through MDM and EDR integration to make sure the device is healthy.
And passwords are out.
And finally, enforcing phishing-resistant authentication. Things like FIDO2 or WebAuthn. You can't trust the session, the user, or the device without constantly revalidating.
And along with these new controls, we're finally seeing the industry push back against what people are calling hack lore. I love seeing that Stop Hack Lore open letter from CSOs.
Yes. They're urging us to just stop wasting time on low-impact advice. Stop telling people to avoid public Wi-Fi. It's almost always encrypted now. Stop telling people to change complex passwords all the time. It just encourages weaker patterns.
Right. Instead, the real focus has to be on enforcing the big stuff. MFA, multi-factor authentication, using strong passphrases with password managers, and just keeping critical software updated.
Those are the foundational activities that actually matter. And finally, given the AI-enabled threats we talked about, CSOs are adopting comprehensive offensive security programs, OffSec.
Why the bigger push for offensive security now?
Because traditional scanning just can't detect these new sophisticated attack patterns from AI tools. Offensive security gives you empirical risk validation. You're hiring ethical hackers to test your systems the same way the criminals would before they do.
So you know your investments are actually working.
Exactly.
We've covered a tremendous amount today. And the central tension is so stark. The world of AI security is changing faster than we can regulate it, while at the same time, our foundational systems, healthcare, enterprise software, remain these huge targets for ransomware and even insiders exploiting basic failures.
Indeed. And if you take away one thought to mull over, consider this. The widespread use of deepfake technology for social engineering is becoming so effective that cyber insurers are now offering coverage specifically for deepfake incidents.
Wow.
So if the financial industry is now treating a fabricated identity, an AI voice that tricks an employee into wiring money as a standard insurable risk, what does that imply about how fundamentally we have to change the way we verify communication and trust the voices and faces we encounter online?
That is the core question that defines our digital future, isn't it? As the landscape gets faster and more convincingly fake, the one thing we can't afford to stop doing is questioning how we authenticate reality. We appreciate you joining us for this. We'll talk to you next time.
Spoken Tech for your ears.